All right. We are live. It's Oirla Arba Osser, Beidkenes Chometzel Eraner, the night of the 14th. And Baruch Hashem, we did our B'dikas Chometz at the Taub house. And I decided to go live as a public service to those who are still cooking or cleaning. Just going to try to accompany you while you're doing your stuff, your out of Pesach stuff. How you like that? Just sending this out in a few more places. Something to listen to while you cook. So, today is the birthday of the Rambam. And let's talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about all types of stuff. And we'll see how much interaction we get. If you have questions, you could post them on the chat on YouTube, the YouTube Live chat. If it's something of a sensitive nature where you want it to be more private, you could email me, rabbi@soulwords.org, and I could try to take a look at that during this live broadcast. We didn't really promote this anywhere. This is a very spontaneous thing, last minute. I think we just put it on the Soul Words WhatsApp status, as well as the Instagram stories. Since I'm mentioning Soul Words WhatsApp status, so I'll mention here, if you're on WhatsApp and you'd like to receive updates and clips and links to new content, stuff like that, just text our WhatsApp number, 516-495-3021. I'll repeat that. That's 516-495-3021. And write the word subscribe. I'm going to write it in the chat as well, right there. I just put it in the chat. That's our WhatsApp. Yeah. So somebody says, hello, Rabbi. Hello. I'm looking at the chat right now. So this is the Rambam's Yortzeit. Not Yortzeit, I'm sorry. Birthday. The Rambam was born out of Pesach. I'm thinking about the Rambam right now because the Siyum is coming up. The Lubavitcher Rebbe launched an initiative with the purpose of uniting the entire Jewish people around the study of the entire Torah. What does it mean, the entire Jewish nation? Men, women, and children. What does it mean, the entire Torah? It means the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, which has all of the laws for every single subject of Jewish life, including laws that have not been practiced since the destruction of the temple and will not be practiced again until Mashiach comes. So it's the most thorough compendium of halacha. And in that sense, it is comprehensive. It contains within it the entirety of Torah subjects, at least from a legalistic point of view. And the Rebbe wanted that everyone should go through the Rambam's work on a regular basis. The ideal program of study is to learn 3 chapters a day of Rambam, concluding the entire Mishnah Torah, all 14 books, on a yearly basis. Actually, it takes a little bit less than a year. And the Siyum, our completion of the study cycle, is coming up on Beis Iyar, second day of the Hebrew month of Iyar, which is in a little more than 2 weeks. It's a significant day. It's the birthday of the Rebbe Maharash, the 4th Rebbe of Chabad. And I really want to make a big thing out of it. In my lifetime, I'm not that old. In my lifetime, I've seen how the Rebbe's teachings have become more and more widely accepted. And it's remarkable. It's amazing. But you know what frustrates me is that the Rebbe's passion for the study of Rambam has not caught on to the same degree as some of the Rebbe's other initiatives and ideas and teachings. And it's counterintuitive because really you would think the easiest sell would be Rambam. Like, it's not even a Lubavitcher text. It's like Rambam. Who could be against Rambam? It's classic. I mean, who could be against Rambam? In Rambam's lifetime, there were people against Rambam, but there haven't been anti-Rambam people for about 1,000 years. It's like pretty much established now. Rambam is pretty mainstream, about as mainstream as you get. And he's just transcendent. He's a Sephardi, but everybody studies him, Sephardim, Ashkenazim. He's just about as mainstream. Rambam, I mean, you can't get more mainstream than that. And yet, the idea of studying the entire Mishnah Torah every year has not really caught on. People learn Daf Yomi. They go through the entire Shas every 7 years, which is a beautiful thing. But why hasn't Rambam Yomi caught on? And I really, really want to make a big deal about it. I was texting some friends of mine late last night. I went to Crown Heights last night to pick up some meat for my wife. Like, as if she's going to eat all the meat. I make it sound like she's sitting there saying, bring me meat. I should say the truth. It's for me. It's for her to make for me and for our family. Anyways, I went. It's funny how it's also when I watch my kids, I'm babysitting, right? Same mentality. Babysitting your own kids. I went to Crown Heights to pick up meat so my wife could prepare it for our family for Yom Tov. And so when I was driving back from Crown Heights, I was texting some friends of mine and being like, we got to make the Siyum Rambam big this year. What's the deal? Like, why can't we get some prominent rabbis and scholars outside of Chabad to join the study cycle? So I got a few friends of mine who are, they're movers and shakers, Mahers, motivated guys with alacrity. Let's see what happens. I don't know. If anyone has any good ideas, let me know. But I want to make the Rambam thing catch on. Everyone should learn Rambam. And if you don't want to learn 3 chapters a day, which I understandably is difficult, you can learn 1 chapter a day, and then you finish the whole Mishnah Torah every 3 years, which is also nothing to sneeze at. Or you can learn Sefer HaMitzvahs, which is like sort of the abridged version. Rather than learning Mishnah Torah, you can learn Sefer HaMitzvahs, which is a little bit easier than Mishnah Torah. But at any rate, we got to get this Rambam thing to catch on. Yeah. You know who was very instrumental in getting me to really, really up my Rambam game was a Yid in Crown Heights, Yisrael Shem Tov. He used to harass me all the time and ask me how my Rambam is. And I don't know how to lie. That's one of my problems with being neurodiverse or whatever it is that I am. I don't have good social skills, and I don't know how to lie, although I think those things are pretty much mutually intertwined, right? Social skills and lying, those are almost synonymous, not quite, but so I don't know how to lie. So he's asking me how's my Rambam going. I told him the truth. This is not perfect. Now, I think most people would just lie and say, it's fine, get away from me. But I would tell him, sometimes I miss. Yeah, I admitted it. So he used to harass me so much. And as Baruch Hashem, it's been a few years where my Rambam is good. And I want to get everybody into it. I want to get everybody to learn Rambam. The Rebbe was so passionate about the power of Rambam to unite Klal Yisrael. Rambam is, why do I say it's something that unites Klal Yisrael? Because it's something that every scholar can appreciate. the Rav Gon was one of the greatest scholars. What did he koch in? What was his passion, among other things? But he was incredibly enthusiastic about Rambam, and he would learn and relearn and relearn and relearn Rambam. So, and Brisk is also known for being very passionate about Rambam. You know, the Brisker Derech and Limud Torah is not balabatish. It's quite erudite, and they koch in Rambam. So even the biggest scholars can appreciate Rambam. And someone wrote in the chat, do I learn 1 or 3 chapters? 3 chapters, Baruch Hashem. So even the biggest scholars can learn Rambam, but also simple people can learn Rambam, because if you just learn Rambam on a simple level of halacha without getting into the real scholarship of it, where you're comparing what he says in one place to another place, and you're comparing how he says it in his book compared to the original source in Chazal, so if you're not doing all of that, you're just reading it on a simple level, then yeah, regular people can appreciate it, which, by the way, is not the same with, let's say, learning Gemara. So you may learn a daf of Gemara and not really follow, not really understand Pshat, what's going on there. But Rambam is something that even people on a fairly basic level can understand and appreciate. So someone's writing in the chat, what do you think most shluchim learn? I think 3. I think 3 chapters. I think most shluchim learn 3 chapters. That's purely anecdotal, based on my impressions and on my interactions with people. Okay. So yeah, I would really like to get people more excited about learning Rambam on a daily basis, and maybe we could create some type of excitement about. They have so many resources for Daf Yomi that help people get excited about the limud. Maybe there's just a question of creating more resources. Maybe an app. I don't know. There is a Rambam app, and I use it quite often. Daily Rambam study. Project of Chabad.org. So Chabad.org has a Rambam app. Made possible by a generous grant from, I'm looking at it right now, Rabbi Shlomi and Miro Greenwald. It's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. Very good guy. Involved in a lot of projects that people know about and a lot of projects that people don't even know about. Coordinated by Rabbi Chaim Zaklis. Chaim's a good guy, too. He's a shliach out in Vacaville, California. I've been there. I spoke at his Chabad house. Yeah, maybe we should speak to Chaim about this initiative. It's a good idea. Okay, I'm WhatsApping Chaim Zaklis right now, even though it's Erev Pesach. I know it's Erev Pesach, but we need to talk after Yom Tov about 2 ER. He knows exactly what I mean. When I write 2 ER, he knows I mean the Rambam Siyum. We'll see how long it takes him to respond to me, because he's probably running around. He's doing like a Costco run. I bet you, because it's 8 o'clock right now in California. I bet you Chaim's doing like a Costco run or something right now. Yeah. So maybe we'll come back to a discussion around them momentarily. But how many people are on right now? 12 people. 12 people. Not that many. Okay. Hey, do me a favor. The 12 people are on. Let's see how viral growth really works. All 12 people who are on, text the link right now. You know how to text the link? I'll put it in the chat and make it super easy for you. text the link to 3 people right now and say, I don't know if this is interesting to you, but Shais Taub is live and rambling about anything he thinks of or anything anyone wants him to talk about while people cook and clean for Pesach. Let's see if we can bump that up. We've got 12 people watching, so send it out to 3 people right now, and let's see if we can get it to be a little bit viral. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so I want to share with you a thought that I had about Pesach. I actually had this thought. I was recently at my son-in-law's house. He had a shiur with his friends, his classmates. They got together and they had a class. And we learned a letter of the Rebbe, an English letter of the Rebbe. Interesting letter to Goldhirsch from Australia, who wanted to build a children's hospital. And the Rebbe said that it's better to invest in preventative health, preventative medicine, hospitals for children who are already sick. But there are things we can do to strengthen children so that they don't come to sickness. And since the material and the spiritual are intertwined in the life of a Jew, so when we support the Jewish education of children, so this will help them to be strong in all ways. And then, so the Rebbe mentions there about the advantage of preventative medicine, that if you do... Oh, Chaim just texted me back. Hold on a second. He texted me back this, which I think is a white nationalist symbol now, and he probably doesn't know that. My dear. Chaim texted me back the OK sign. When I was a kid, it was the OK sign or the Jordage sign, I think. Why do I think that? I'm going to just Google that. Why do I think that? What a random thing to think. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think it was the Jordage. That's a clothing company. I don't even know if it exists anymore. But I think they did the OK sign. But the OK sign, I think, became a white nationalist trope. The OK hand gesture is now listed as a symbol of hate. NPR. OK hand gesture, a common hand gesture that a 4chan trolling, all those 4chan guys, they just ruin everything. They take everything that's decent and pure and they taint it. Claimed in 2017, had been appropriated as a symbol meaning white power. Oh my goodness, that's from the Anti-Defamation League website. Okay. So, and you never know when 4chan does stuff like that, if it's a joke or not. And they could be laughing at people who take it seriously. I think sometimes they make up stuff that's not even true to get the media to write about it. And then the media writes about it, and the 4chan people laugh about it, and then it actually becomes real. Life imitates trolling. That's a meme. Life imitates trolling. Okay, so anyways, Chaim sent me a little OK symbol like this, but I'm not going to tell him that it's a white power symbol. So I was in the middle of saying something, that if you have preventative medicine, so then you don't even have to go through the challenges of being sick. You can just go straight to the health. Anyways, I wanted to read to you from the Hayom Yom for tomorrow, or not even tomorrow, but the next day. The Hayom Yom for the first, you know what Hayom Yom is, that Rebbe made a sefer Hayom Yom from day to day, which has a little aphorism, a little saying, thought, meditation each day of the calendar year. So the Hayom Yom for First day of Yom Tov, Tezvav Nisan, 15th of Nisan. Aleph de Chag HaMatzos, first day of Pesach. Yeah, I'm going to skip the first paragraph. I'm just going to do the second paragraph, okay. Admor Azok in Omer, the Alter Rebbe said, Mechla dem Heimnusa, Laila Harishain. Mechla dem Nusa is Aramaic for food of faith. Michael de Amunah, Shalamuna. Leil Rishain is the first night. Mechla das Vasa, another Aramaic term, the food of healing, Laila Hasheni, is the second night. So I'll explain to you. In the Zohar is a primary text of Kabbalah, and it's written in Aramaic. So it says there that matzah is called Mechla dem Nusa, food of faith. It also says that matzah is called Mechla das Vasa. So which one is it? Well, whenever in Judaism we say, is it this or is it that? The answer is yes. Well, what do you mean yes? Yes, it's both. Okay. And Alter Rebbe explains that the first night, the matzah is food of faith. The second night, second Seder, the matzah is food of healing. Okay, what's the significance of that? As die Refuah bringt die Emunah. When healing brings faith, was sagt der Dank, he explains what that means, that healing brings faith. Was sagt der Dank dir Gott für mein Refuah? He says, thank you, God, for my healing. Right? Like, thank you, Hashem. Those bumper stickers. Thank you, God, for my healing. Is doch gewesen krank, but he was sick. Because he's thanking God for his healing. Healing from what? From having been sick. So I guess it's a happy, in the end, it's a happy resolution, but he went through sickness before that happened. That's when the healing brings to faith. Right? First, you have the healing, and from the healing, you come to faith. The faith is sort of a net gain from the healing experience. You go through the sickness, God forbid, and then the healing, and then you gain faith in God who healed you. And you say, thank you, God, for healing me. But you had to go through sickness in order to get there. But, as die Emunah bringt die Refuah, when faith brings to healing, is men lechatchila nit krank. He was never sick to begin with. What does that mean? He was never sick to begin with. Healing from what? I mean, if he wasn't sick, then how is it healing? So what it means is preventative medicine, preemptive healing. You understand that the first case is the healing brings to faith. Because I had a healing experience, now I believe. I believe in Hashem who healed me. But if the process is reversed, and I actually start with the faith, I start with a strong connection, spiritual connection, and that brings about healing, it's actually preventative medicine that causes that I don't have to go through the sickness and healing process at all. I can avoid that whole process. Why? Because I've already come to the faith. The only reason a person goes through challenges in life is to bring him closer to God. So when healing brings to faith, the only reason the person had to go through healing from sickness is in order to get him to the faith. Faith is the goal the whole time. The whole purpose of life is to get closer to God. So if it takes sickness, God forbid, then that's what it takes to get him closer to God. But in the second scenario where we say that faith brings to healing, so then he's already at the target. The target is faith. So he's got the faith. So if he's already got the faith, then it's not necessary for him to go through sickness. Why make the guy sick? He's already the positive gain to come away from a sickness and healing experience in life is only to make you closer to God. But if you're already experiencing that closeness, so why put that person through that experience? And the answer is you don't. He doesn't have to go through that experience. And therefore he avoids sickness. So it's preemptive healing. He's preemptively healed from all the sickness that he would have had. He would have had to have had he not already arrived at the faith. The sickness and healing would have been a necessary process to go through to arrive at the faith. But he's already at the faith, so why put him through the sickness? You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting concept to me. The healing from something that you never actually had to suffer from, meaning the healing was preemptive. And what do you do with that? Psychologically, I'm saying. What do you make of an experience that you didn't have? You know what I'm saying? Like the sickness that I didn't have to go through, the sickness that it was unnecessary to go through because I had already come to the spiritual conclusion that sickness would have brought me to. I already came to that conclusion, so I don't need to go through that sickness. So as far as I'm aware, it's not that I was spared a sickness, because I'm not aware of it. It never happened. If I went through the sickness and then it was removed, resolved, healed, so then I'm very much aware that there was a problem and it was resolved. But here, it's, the problem was taken away before I had to experience it. And I've been thinking about this for a few weeks. I said that I was at my son-in-law's house and he had a shiur. He had a get-together. They ordered a couple pizzas and his classmates, and they were learning a letter of the Rebbe, and they were talking about this idea of the preventative medicine that the Rebbe was speaking about. And so I took out the Hayom and I read them this Hayom. I said, look, the Hayom says that Pesach is preventative medicine. The first night of Pesach, the first Seder, the matzah is called Mechla Dehimnusa, food of healing. The second night, the matzah is called Mechla Das Vasa. I'm sorry, did I say food of healing? Food of faith. Mechla Dehimnusa is the first night, food of faith. Second night, Mechla Das Vasa, food of healing. So you go from food of faith on the first night to food of healing on the second night. That's faith and then healing. Right? And the Hayom explains that when it's healing and then faith, it means you went through, God forbid, a sickness experience which became resolved. That's the healing. And that brings you to faith. Thank you, God, for having healed me. But if you can do it the other way, where it's faith and then healing, so it's actually retroactive or preemptive healing, which means you never have to have the sickness to begin with. If you start with the faith, which the whole purpose of the healing was only to bring you to the faith, so then there's no purpose to go through the challenge and the adversity and the struggle of the sickness experience. You've already gained what it has to offer you. So, yeah, that's obviously the easier way. Yeah, it's more preferable. It's definitely it's less it's certainly less disruptive to your life when you don't get sick to begin with. But I was thinking about this the past few weeks. Like I said, psychologically, subjectively, what do you even do with... How do you contextualize an experience that you didn't experience, meaning the lack of an experience, the lack of a negative experience? How do you have appreciation for something hard that you didn't have to go through? Right? And so I was talking to these guys, these young guys, my son-in-law's classmates, and I told them, Bashkocha Pratis, somebody sent me a Instagram direct message. And by the way, I think I should just, for the sake of it, since I already posted the WhatsApp, I'm going to post my Instagram handle right now on the chat as well. So if people it's amazing, Baruch Hashem, we have 18.6 thousand followers on Instagram. Anyways, I'm posting in the chat right now our Instagram handle, and you can go subscribe right now if you're not already subscribed. Anyways, so I was talking to my son-in-law's friends about this idea of how do you gain an appreciation for an illness that God cured you of preemptively? In other words, you never experienced the illness, thank God. But how do you appreciate that? Like, unfortunately, when we go through trouble and then it's resolved, we feel relief and then we're appreciative. But it's hard to muster appreciation for a problem that was removed from us preemptively before we had to actually ever suffer from it. So I said to these guys, somebody DM'd me a video on Instagram. Maybe some of you have seen it. It seemed like it was fairly viral. Anyways, I didn't recognize who it was. I'm not Bucky, not an expert in... Bucky is a Hebrew word for expert. I'm not expertly versed in all of my social media influencers or even mainstream celebrities. I'm pretty good if you mention me like celebrities from like 1981 and prior. I'm pretty good at that. I could probably tell you about people who were famous in the 70s. But yeah, I wasn't sure who this guy was, if he's famous or not. So maybe I'm telling you something and you guys are going to be like, what? That's so-and-so. Well, he may be so-and-so. I didn't know who he was. Anyways, he's talking to these people and he's like, if I would give you $1 million, maybe even said 10 million. Let's say, why not? And he said, if I give you $10 million, would you feel good? And the guy's like, oh yeah, I'd feel good. He's like, you'd be in a good mood? Yeah. Like, after I give you $10 million, you'd be in such a good mood that nobody would be able to get you down for the rest of the day. The guy's like, yeah, for sure. He says, okay, but let's say there's a catch. Let's say I'm going to give you $10 million right now. Really, I'm going to give it to you. But it's the last day you live. You have to die tomorrow. Do you want $10 million under those conditions? The guy's like, no, thank you. So the guy who's interviewing says, okay, so I just want to clarify then, you're telling me that staying alive, even for just more than one more day, is worth more than $10 million to you. The guy says, yeah, I guess when you put it like that, yeah, I guess it is. So the guy who's running the interview says, all right, so your being alive, even for just another day, is worth more than $10 million to you. You told me a minute ago that if I gave you $10 million, you'd be so happy all day, nothing would get you down. But your being alive is worth more to you than the $10 million. So how come every single day that you wake up, you're not so happy that nothing can get you down? The guy's like, psh. Like literally, he did the psh. That's the universal it's not nonverbal, but yeah, maybe it is nonverbal because it's not a word. But that's the universal expression of what would you call it? Being totally flabbergasted by the incredulous regarding the profundity of something you've just heard. That you just say, psh, you pop the tire, let the air out of the tire. Psh, it goes psh, and yeah. So I was thinking about putting those two things together. That the Hayem Yom, this book here, which I held up a few minutes ago, says that the first night of Pesach, the matzah, is called food of faith, and the second night is called food of healing. What's the significance of first faith and then healing? So he said, when you have first healing and then faith, that means that you were sick, you got healed, and then as a result, you came to belief in God. But if you start with faith and then it's healing, what it means is that was a preemptive healing because you already had the faith, which was the only purpose for which you go through the trials and tribulations in life, is to bring you closer to God. So if you're already feeling that closeness to God, it's not necessary to go through the trials and tribulations. So then the faith becomes preemptive or retroactive, and you never have to go through the sickness experience to begin with. But then I was saying, how do you make sense of that retroactive, preemptive healing experience? You don't even know that you went through it. And I guess I thought this little Instagram video that somebody sent me was a good way, a little mental exercise for trying to wrap your head around it. That, would you like $10 million? You'd be in a great mood, $10 million? Yeah. Would you take it if you're going to die tomorrow? No, I wouldn't agree to those conditions. So you want $10 million more? So you want to be alive more than $10 million? Yeah, I guess I do. But if $10 million would make you happy all day, nothing could take your smile off your face. How come just simply being alive today doesn't put a smile on your face that nobody could take away? You're right. So I guess that's what I was thinking about, which is contemplating upon all of the blessings that we have, which are not solutions to problems that we had, but preemptive removal of problems before we had to have them. And can we try to cultivate greater gratitude to God for those types of blessings? And I think that's really one of the messages of Pesach. The first night, the matzah is food of faith. The second night, the matzah is food of healing. We don't have to reverse it and go through the healing experience in order to come to the faith. We can have the faith first. When we have the faith first, then we avoid the entire sickness and healing experience. We can just have a preemptive healing where we never have to go through the sickness to begin with. But we need to really cultivate a sense of appreciation for it. Otherwise, it happens and we're oblivious. We don't even realize it's happening to us. We don't even thank God for all of the miracles that he did for us, all of the problems he solved for us before we had to actually even experience those problems. I mean, my goodness, if God forbid we have to go through trials and tribulations in life, we go through difficulties, we go through pain. None of us should know from such things. And then it gets resolved, and it gets resolved in a way that's clearly greater than my human abilities, where it's maybe not a miracle like the splitting of the sea, but it's clearly something that wasn't a product of my brain. It wasn't my effort. It was something clearly greater than me. And that's really, really humbling, and it evokes incredible gratitude. And it creates a profound feeling of closeness to God when there's a problem and that problem is removed from me. But hold on a second. Is that the only way we could experience that gratitude and that humility and that feeling of closeness to God? Do we have to go through trouble? Why can't we have gratitude and humility and closeness with God regarding all the wonderful problems that Hashem removed from us before we had to have them? All the solutions to all the problems that were solved for us beforehand, so that we never even had to go through a second of misery. Not 1 second. Like, what about that? Why can't we start getting into that? I'll tell you a story, somewhat related. There was a chassid of the Rebbe, Rabbi Yankov Yehuda Hecht, JJ Hecht. So I just actually saw his burial spot a couple days ago. Yud Aleph Nissen, the Rebbe's birthday, so I was at the Oyel, the Rebbe's resting place. I spent the day there, and so I waited in line. Yud Aleph Nissen is one of those days when a lot of people come to visit the Rebbe's resting place. It's in Cambria Heights, Queens. And so there's a line. I had to wait in line. So I'm waiting in line. I glanced over at some of the monuments in the cemetery. It's in the middle of a cemetery. And I saw J.J. Hecht's Matzeva. Interestingly, I had forgotten, but it's right next to his brother, Moshe Yitzchak Hecht. And so there's a story that J.J. got summoned to the draft office for World War II. This is in the 40s. The Rebbe officially accepted leadership in 1951, but this was in the times of the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, who came to America in 1940. So this was in the 40s. This is during World War II. So J.J. Hecht was a student, a rabbinical student, a young man, a single man. I'm not sure how old he was exactly. Could have been 18, 19, 20, I'm not sure. But he got summoned to the draft office, and he was very nervous about it. And I think he went with his father to the Frierdiker Rebbe. His father's name was Yeshua, or Shia. That's why there's a lot of Shia Hechts, because they're named after that patriarch of their family. So I believe he went with his father to the Rebbe's, to the Frierdiker Rebbe's office, to his room, and asked for a bracha. They asked for a blessing that he should be okay when he goes to the draft office. Meaning, he shouldn't have to go fight. And so the Frierdiker Rebbe gave him a bracha, gave him a blessing, told him it's all going to be fine. So tells the story. He goes to the draft office, and there's all these doctors. Whole thing is a bunch of examinations. And he said they went to expert after expert. It wasn't just one exam. There were many different doctors, and they would examine the young men from head to toe. And he said finally the last doctor he saw was a psychiatrist. So I'm not sure if everyone had to go to the psychiatrist or just him, but the psychiatrist sits down with him and he says, he looks at his chart, Jacob, all right. He says, so tell me, Jacob, what do you like to do? He says, well, I'm a yeshiva student. Yeah, but what do you like to do for fun? You like to go to the movies? So he says, movies, God forbid. Avodah Zarah. All right. That's Hebrew for that's idolatry, right? He was like all incensed. Movies, no way. Yuck. He says, you have a girlfriend, Jacob? He's like, what? Me? God forbid. A girl? No girls. No girls at all. And the psychiatrist was taking notes. And he says, Jacob, you're crazy. And he hands him a piece of paper. He says, hand this to the guy at the front desk, and he'll tell you what to do. And he didn't see what was written on it, but he took the paper from the psychiatrist, and he handed it to the guy at the front desk. And he said, you can go home. You don't have to come back here. So apparently he was rendered psychologically unfit for service based on his answers to these questions, which, if you think about it, I understand in 1940s in Brooklyn, JJ's answers were unconventional. But come on, they never had any other Torah-observant young men. I know that in the 1940s, you didn't have nearly the number of Torah-observant Jews in New York as we do today, Baruch Hashem. I know that, but still, I mean, this draft office is dealing with young men. That's the demographic they're dealing with. They never had any other yeshiva Bacham. And if they did have yeshiva bachram and they dismissed all of them on those same charges, wouldn't that have become a known thing? I mean, come on, that would have been in the Jewish community. You know how quickly things get passed around, news travels. If one guy, the first yeshiva boy who got exempted because he answered questions like that, the first time that would happen, within 5 minutes, every yeshiva would know. And that was before cell phones. Every yeshiva would know in 5 minutes. So clearly it wasn't something that happened. But for whatever reason, this guy, this psychiatrist, decided to ask these questions, and JJ was, Baruch Hashem, he answered the way a Chassidish Bacher is supposed to answer. You know, maybe he could have tried to conform a little bit more, to not ruffle any feathers. Maybe he could have tried to at least feign some assimilation so he'll seem a little bit more normal, so he doesn't provoke any ire. But he, Baruch Hashem, answered very truthfully, and he got this exemption based on being mentally unfit. So he brought the so he got the exemption, and he and his father went back to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and they told him what happened. And I believe the Frierdiker Rebbe laughed. I believe so. Who knows? You know, it's hard to know because these stories get told and retold so many times, and they become better every time they're told. So anytime I hear that somebody said something with a smile, or even better, he said with a twinkle in his eye, I'm always suspicious that that's an embellishment of the storyteller. But at any rate, here's the part that I'm 99.99999% is not an embellishment, because only two people were present to hear this, and I don't suspect either of them of making up this sentence, and I don't think anyone else would have made this up from whole cloth. This sounds quite reliable. JJ and his father told the story to the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe said, and I believe that this is really what happened. He said, I should explain. That's it's a verse from Tehillim. And in fact, we're going to say that tomorrow night. Yeah, in the Hallel Hagadol. In the Haggadah tomorrow night. Do I have a Haggadah here around me? No, I don't have a copy of the Haggadah. Although it's in the back of my siddur. So it's part of, actually we say it Shabbos and Yom Tov and Shachris as well. Right here. Heidel Hashem Kitev Kileilim Chaste is how it starts. And, Tehillim Kuf Lamed Vav. Psalms 136. Anyways, there's a line. Where is it? La'osin niflois gedeiros levade kileilim chazdei. Right, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth line. And like I said, it's Psalm 136, and we say it in the Haggadah, in the Seder, tomorrow night. So I'm just checking, making sure it's 136. Yeah, La'osin niflois gedeiros levade kileilim chazdei is Psalms 136, 4. Chapter 136, verse 4. Lo se niflaot gedolot levado ki lo'olam chasdo. So that literally means to the one who he alone makes wonders, for his kindness is everlasting. But the Frierdiker Rebbe said it different. What did he tell JJ and his father after he got exempted from the draft? He said, let me cut it the way he cut it. He says like this: to the one who makes wonders, meaning Hashem, gedolos. But how big are the wonders? Levadai, only he knows how big his wonders are. In other words, he was telling them, Ein balanes makaris nisai, which is a Maimer Chazal. It's a saying from the Gemara that he says, look, you realize that this was a wonder, obviously, but you don't realize how big of a wonder. In fact, only Hashem realizes how big of a wonder this was that just happened. So why am I telling you this story? Because I was thinking about this in terms of the Mechla de Himnusa. On the first night, matzah is the food of faith. On the first night, Mechla das Vasa, food of healing. Matzah is food of healing on the second night. And the meaning there that when you have first the healing and then the faith, it means you had to go through sickness and healing in order to come to faith. But if you have faith to begin with, then you don't have to go through the adversity. You have retroactive healing. So in a similar vein, I was thinking about this Lois and the Flois, he who makes wonders, Gedolos, but how great, Levade, only he knows. In other words, I was talking earlier about when we don't even know that a wonder happened for us, so how can we be grateful? But even when we do know that a wonder happened for us, sometimes we don't appreciate how great the wonder was. And it's obviously harder to be grateful when you don't understand that a wonder happened for you, or even if you understand that a wonder happened for you, but you don't really understand how great that wonder really is, so it's harder to be grateful. So I guess what I'm saying is that we all need to work on our gratitude for all the terrible things that Hashem removed from our lives before they happened. How about that? Can we do that? Can we have a little gratitude meditation right now? I know you're out there right now. You're broiling some chicken necks for your zrayos, or you're taping tinfoil to the countertop, or you're remembering you need another carton of eggs, and you're trying to figure out if 7-Eleven, which is open till midnight, has eggs, and hoping that the other Jews didn't all buy the eggs. And, so as you're doing all this stuff, we got 20 people on right now. It's not so many people. I'm going to ask everyone who's on right now. We're trying to get, we did this very last minute, very spontaneous, but let's try to get more of a crowd. Can you send out the link? If you're watching right now, I know it's 11:40, but your friends are awake. They're getting ready for Pesach also. So how about you send them out this link and say, hey, this guy is ranting spontaneously, and he's ready to talk about anything that we want to talk about. Let's go listen to him. Why not? Why not? You're cleaning anyways. What are you going to do right now? Listen to some old podcast that was already recorded when you could be listening to something that's spontaneous and live and happening right now. So send out, oh no, while I'm plugging that you should send out the link, I lost 2 people, went to 18. Oh, but now it just went back to 20. Okay, probably 2 new people entered. We want to welcome all people who are joining us. I'm not sure how people are doing this, if they're starting from the beginning of the feed or if they just jump to the... Can somebody even respond to me in the chat? If you joined, if you're with me right now, and you didn't join from the very beginning, when you came on, did you start from the beginning or did you just join us mid-stream wherever we were at? Can anyone let me know? Is anyone out there? Is anyone out there? All right, I'm checking my WhatsApps. No? Okay, nothing new. That's unusual. I usually get random WhatsApps all day long. But Punkt jetzt. Of all times right now. I don't have no WhatsApps. Okay, and I'm going to check my email because I said people can email private stuff to rabbi@soulwords.org. I'll repeat that again. Rabbi, R-A-B-B-I, @soulwords.org. If you have a private question that you want to send me, you want me to talk about here online. Okay, let me look at my email. I got a bunch of emails, but I don't think any of them have to do with tonight's live stream. 23 people here. Welcome to the newcomers. So someone here says, joined 5 minutes ago. Okay, cool. And when you joined 5 minutes ago, YouTube took you to the beginning of the stream or just took you to wherever we're at right now live? Or what I'm saying is I know you're watching us live right now, but did you have to manually use the scrubber to go up to that point? Or is that just where YouTube brought you in? Just curious. If you could let me know. So while I'm waiting to get an answer, I'll share with you a story. So Passover story. A little Pesach story. I'm trying to actually think of one. Oh, he responded. Here's my Pesach question. Good. All right. And he is answering. Jack is answering live. He just jumped right in. And someone, Nechama, I just joined hearing your question live. Okay, great. When I join a live late, I start from the beginning and I speed it up to catch up. Oh, and you do it on like double speed. Cool. All right. All right, here's a question from Becky. All right. Here's my Pesach question. We are unlimited and we are limited. How do we balance the two? Wow. Okay. We are unlimited and we are limited. How do we balance the two? That's a deep question. That is a real deep question. And I'm assuming that's a Pesach question because the entire message of Pesach, according to Chassidus, is the transcendence of limitations. Pesach means skipping, like when the Holy One, blessed be He, skipped over the homes of the Jewish people during the plague of the slaying of the firstborn. But also it means skipping, jumping, like making a leap in one's spiritual growth. Furthermore, the biblical name of Egypt is Mitzrayim, which is etymologically related to the word Meitzorim, which means narrows or straits. Mitzrayim is a place of constriction where our spiritual powers are being walled in and we're unable to express ourselves. And Pesach, leaping, jumping, skipping, means getting out from that narrow place. So the whole message of Pesach is about transcending limitations. That's why I'm assuming it's called a Pesach question. Becky writes here, here's my Pesach question. We're unlimited and we are limited. How do we balance the two? Okay, so again, it's a Pesach question because the whole idea of Pesach is finding that part of ourselves which is unlimited. But you're saying, but we are limited. We're also limited. And that's not a contradiction. You're not posing it as a contradiction. You're not saying, are we limited or are we unlimited? You're saying we're limited and we're unlimited. There are aspects of us which are unlimited. There are aspects of us which are limited. How do we balance the two? It's a wonderful question. Somebody's writing here. I'm just going to read it. I love you, Rabbi. I listen to you every day when I drive to work. You changed my life. Wow, that's really, really nice. He's writing a question now, which I'm not going to answer right now because I'm still in the middle of answering Becky's question. But how can matzah be the bread of our affliction and also the bread of our freedom at the same time? Whoa. Well, I love these contradiction questions. Okay, we're going to get back to that. Raphael's question, our angel of healing. I'm sure he has a connection to Mechla Das Vasa. Yeah, Rabbi Raphael, you have a connection to Mechla Das Vasa? Certainly you do. Okay, but let's deal with Becky's question here. We're limited and we're unlimited. Taka is a. So what does it mean we're limited and we're unlimited? Well, let's first of all talk about what does it mean we're unlimited, because I don't think we're limited requires a whole lot of explanation. probably your default experience of life involves being limited, right? I can't be in two places at one time. Or as they say in Yiddish, man kann nicht tanzen auf zwei chasanas. You can't dance at two weddings simultaneously, at least. So we all know what it means to be limited. There are things that are out of our control. We wish they were otherwise, and there's nothing we can do about them, right? So we know what it means to be limited. I don't think you need me to explain that. But what does it mean that we're unlimited? What does it mean we're unlimited? So I think it means a lot of things, but maybe to just give a glimpse into the concept of what it means to be unlimited. Viktor Frankl, he writes about his Auschwitz experience, and he couches it in philosophical terms. And he was a psychologist, and he speaks about it in terms of psychology and about mental, emotional wellness. But he also frames it in philosophical terms. Actually, interestingly, he borrows some phrases from Nietzsche, and he says, and I don't know the original German. I wish I did. But he said, man can endure any what if he has a why. Yeah. Maybe somebody could pull that up for me. Just Google the original German from Nietzsche. A man can endure any what if he has a why. Or maybe I'll just do it. Well, you guys don't care if this is sloppy, right? Because this is just spontaneous. We're just having fun over here. I'm just trying to make background noise while you put tinfoil on the inside of the refrigerator right now. Or while you tell your kids to go back to bed because they heard you dropping a flamethrower on your toe. I wonder if any non-Jews are listening right now and wondering why the Jews are dropping flamethrowers on their toes. It could be a guy's koshering something and he needed a flamethrower and he dropped it on his toe and he wasn't wearing shoes. I mean, doesn't that happen to you all the time? Okay. Man can endure any how if he has a why. If he has a why. See, I'm glad I Googled it. Nietzsche. German. Let's see if we can get the original. Hat man sein Warum des Lebens. I don't speak German, by the way. Because of knowing Yiddish, I can usually figure out German. So vertragt. I mean, in Yiddish, you'd say vertragt. He can tolerate. Man sich fast mit jedem wie. Wie is how. Warum is why. Wie is how. So it's inverted. Actually, I'm not surprised that it's inverted in German. Or actually, it's an original German quote. So it's the inversion is in the English translation. So the original Nietzsche, it's if a person has a why, a warum, for his life, Lebens is his life, he can tolerate, can vertragen, any how. If there's a reason why he has to go through what he's going through, then he could tolerate whatever it is, no matter how it is that he'll have to go through it. Yeah. Hat men a warum für sein Leben kann vertragen jeden wie. Okay. I don't know. I just, translated Nietzsche into Yiddish. Somebody should do that. Okay. At any rate, so why was I talking about Frankl? Because I was saying he was speaking about the idea. Oh, Jack says Frankl is a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. You're correct. That is correct. Thank you for the correction. Okay, but Did I say he was a psychologist? I said he was speaking in psychological terms. Didn't I play back the tape? I said he was speaking in philosophical terms, even though he was also primarily speaking about psychological phenomena. I don't know. Replay it. So he was speaking about the idea of internal freedom. I'm not sure if that was a term that he actually used. He uses the term internal freedom, but the idea that even when one is not in control of his situation, like somebody who's an inmate in Auschwitz, God forbid, but by finding meaning for his life, meaning if there's a purpose, why he's still alive, even in these conditions, then he's able to be internally free. Is this live? Paul is asking, is this live? Yes, Paul, it's live. It's totally live. You can interact with me. You can say whatever you want, and if it's nice, I'll read it out loud. How you like that? Okay, so what does it mean we are unlimited? So this is Becky's question. We're limited, but we're unlimited. I think actually she said unlimited first. We're unlimited, but we're limited. So what does it mean we're unlimited? It means that we have the ability to transcend limitations, right? Like Frankel's observation that a person in any situation, even the most nightmarish conditions, can be internally free. He can refuse to have others define the meaning of his life. He has that ability to retain the mastery over his narrative, even if he cannot control what's happening, but he can control the meaning of why it's happening. So that's what it means to be unlimited. Or I shouldn't say that's what it means. I could better say that's one way of understanding what it means when we are unlimited. But I think this itself begins to answer your original question, because as you see, this description of being unlimited inherently is defined in the context of limitations. In other words, a lamp in the daytime doesn't give light. Well, of course it does give light. It gives the same amount of light as a lamp in the nighttime. But subjectively speaking, it's not perceived as giving light. So think about it like this. Unlimitedness that is not observed within a context of limitations is, for all practical intents and purposes, not unlimited. You only perceive, what I'm saying is you only perceive our transcendence when there's something to transcend. We're only unlimited when we are placed in a situation of limitations. Otherwise, again, it's like a lamp in the middle of the daytime. It's giving the same light as it gives at night, but there's no perception of the lamp itself as a source of light. So, do you understand why that sort of begins to answer your question? Your question was, we're unlimited, but we're limited. Like, how do you put the two together? And I kind of am saying that it's almost by definition that there needs to be limitation in order to be described as unlimited. A lack of limits itself that doesn't play off of any opposition or tension is may be in the purest sense In the abstract sense, it may be unlimited, but certainly not in the experiential sense. It's not something that we would perceive subjectively as unlimited. So it's like the soul is unlimited, but it's really the power of the soul is only perceived when it enters a body. Well, body is limitations, not just a body is limited. Like we were saying before, you can't be in two places at one time. So, but not only is a body limited, a body is limitations. The body is itself a set of limitations, which it places chiefly upon the soul. And yet, where is the soul's unlimitedness most on display? It's through embodiment. The soul that remains in heaven is in the abstract sense is unlimited, but there's no tension, there's no dynamic interplay between the limitations and the unlimitedness, where you would be able to pinpoint any particular aspect of the soul as being a demonstration of unlimitedness. I see some more chats coming in. So Paul is writing here, if my father is a Jew and I convert, but my wife isn't Jewish, am I Jewish? I love your videos, by the way, regardless of your answer. That is, first of all, thank you for loving my videos, because I want you to know something. Not all people love my videos. I don't think there are a lot of people who hate my videos. There are some people who are hated, like the man you love to hate. Some people, in fact, in today's internet, where the algorithm only really looks at engagement and does not distinguish between hate and love, some people make an entire career just on inciting hatred. They call it rage bait. So, but I don't think a lot of people hate my videos. Maybe a few people, but I don't think a lot of people love it. I think it's a niche audience. I'm really trying to define who my audience is, but I think they're not your typical. It's not your typical audience. It's definitely not something that has mass appeal. I think it's more quirky people, introverts, and highly sensitive people, and overthinkers, philosophers. I think I don't know. People with a dry sense of humor. That's at least what I imagine is the audience. So thank you for enjoying. Oh, no, don't name the niche. Noah says, don't name the niche. Why? Why should I not name it? Will something bad happen if I name it? Is it like casting a spell or something? Why should I not name it? Will it make people, what? You are an awesome vessel of Hashem's light, from Eliza. Thank you, Eliza. You are an awesome vessel of Hashem's light. Right back at you. So Paul said he'll still love my videos no matter what I answer. Paul, that shows integrity. Okay. By the way, you tell me that, but I wonder if it's possible. I actually wonder if it's possible, because sometimes these things are beyond our control. And sometimes we can become turned off by a person, even when in principle we know that we shouldn't be. Meaning in principle we know there's no reason to dismiss this person, but we're emotional beings. So if somebody does something that offends or hurts somebody, even inadvertently, even if objectively you think, well, it's the same guy whose videos I've always enjoyed, it may not be possible for you to enjoy afterwards. At any rate, maybe I'm just babbling right now to avoid answering your question. Your question was interesting because I'm not sure I followed the logic, because you're asking about your wife's Jewish status affecting your own. That's how it seemed, at least the way that you constructed the question. Your wife's Jewish status would not affect your Jewish status. Obviously, Torah strongly frowns upon intermarriage. I don't think I'm shocking anybody by saying that. I don't think anybody here hearing that is saying, what? I wasn't aware of that. But at the same time, a Jew being married to a non-Jew does not remove the Jew's status as a Jew. Now, maybe you're asking because of your situation, you're saying that you converted, and maybe you're asking if being intermarried retroactively renders the conversion invalid. Maybe that's your question. And I'm not going to answer you specifically. I just don't want to take responsibility to do so. But I'll answer in a very general way and to say that just like a born Jew cannot leave Judaism, a converted Jew cannot leave Judaism. In other words, you're free to do whatever you want to do. You can practice however you want to practice. But according to Jewish law, your status will not change. Once you become a Jew, then just like a born Jew, whatever you do is your choice, but you can no longer become un-Jewish. All you would do is make yourself into a lapsed Jew. But you'd still be a Jew, just a lapsed one. I hope that was good. Somebody said you nailed it on the audience description. Can I tell you something interesting? I nailed it on the audience description when I said it's like the introverts and the highly sensitive people and the weirdos. Okay, I'm getting to my point here. So I was driving down Kingston Avenue, and that's the main thoroughfare in 11213 land in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. That's the main Lubavitcher neighborhood. And by the way, you know what I think? I don't think that my channel, you would think that it's like a lot of Lubavitchers because I teach a lot of Chabad Chassidus. I don't think it is. I think probably there are a lot, but not like overrepresented. I think that this channel probably appeals more. You would see a consistency in personality type than level of observance or which community people come from. In other words, I think I have people who come from all communities and all levels of observance, and that's not the real constant in the personality profile of my typical viewer. I think it's more like I was saying, personality stuff. I'm trying to mess with this mic over here. Okay, I don't like the height of the mic, and I keep on wanting to change it. All right. So I was driving down Kingston Avenue. It was Erev Shabbos, Friday afternoon, and I get out of my car. I pull up in front of Mikveh Maher. That's a men's mikveh. I was going to immerse in the mikveh to prepare for the Sabbath. I was going to immerse in the ritualarium in preparation of the Sabbath for the Sabbath day. And I get out of the car, and there's a bunch of guys standing, or maybe they were walking, but they saw me getting out, and they all came over to me. And they were like, "Hey, yeah, Rabbi Taub, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey." And people come over to me all the time, and they're like, "Hey." And I have to try to figure out, do I know them in real life? Which is very awkward. Because if I know you in real life and I've met you and maybe even, you've been to my house or I've been to your house or maybe even we're related or something and I can't remember who you are because I'm not good at that. So then I've committed this social faux pas. So I'm always like living in somewhat like low-level dread that I'm inadvertently snubbing somebody who I have a pre-existing social relationship with. So I'm just going to interrupt for a second. But Paul writes, that is the best answer to that question I got from an Orthodox rabbi. I made the same mistake as my father. I fell in love with a non-Jew. Thanks for your honest and kind answer. Well, Paul, I'm just grateful that my answer was kind. I mean, honest is good, but honest and kind, that's, I try to be kind. I really do. I try to be kind. And I'm glad that you felt that was a helpful answer. And yeah, I hear you. You're saying you made the same mistake as your father. Yeah, and who knows the mysteries of Hashem's world, why these things happen. But perhaps it's a pattern that you need to be the one who puts an end to. I don't know. I don't want to even suggest that I know, but yeah, it's definitely something to think about. So anyways, I was getting out of my car on Kingston Avenue on a Friday afternoon before Shabbos, heading into the mikveh to immerse. And I'm getting out of the car, and this gang, not a gang like a street gang, they weren't gangbangers, but like a group of men, Jewish men, are walking down Kingston Avenue, and they come over to me like, hey, and I'm like, hey, and again, I'm having like this, my brain is just trying to go through my Rolodex, figure out, do I know these people? And I'm pretty sure I don't know them. And then I was really relieved because the next thing they say, like, oh, we watch your videos all the time. Like, oh, what a relief. Because then they had identified the nature of our relationship was a virtual relationship, that they know me from my videos, which means that I don't have to remember any prior interaction that I had with them. So they're like, oh, yeah, we love your videos. We all watch your videos. Yeah, videos. Yeah, we watch you on YouTube, which I love, by the way. Can I tell you something? When people say we watch your videos, I actually love that, as opposed to what? I'm not going to forget the story. I'm coming back to the story. But, and the story is about the niche of my viewership being a bunch of weirdos. I'm going to come back to that. But I just want to say, I love when people say, I watch your videos, as opposed to what? When they come to say, I love your articles. Because I wrote a weekly advice column for Ami Magazine for 8 years. I haven't written it in 3 years. And people will still come up to me and be like, I read your article every week. And I'm like, no, you don't. Yeah, I read it every week. I haven't written it in 3 years. You didn't notice? Yeah, every week, my foot. Okay, but also, why don't I like that? Because I wrote that article begrudgingly because I felt like it provided a certain service, but that's not where my heart and soul is. My heart and soul is in my shiurim, is in my classes, my Torah classes. And I don't like being known as the magazine guy, the advice column guy. I also don't like it because 90% of people who know me as the magazine advice column guy think I'm a therapist, which I'm not. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mental health professional in any way, shape, or form. I've actually gone out of my way to state that and restate it. And people still think, and it's so frustrating. I hate it. I really do. It's my pet peeve. Like, definitely one of the things that just bothers me the most is when people are like, oh, aren't you a therapist? Can I pay you for a session? Like, no, I'm not. Please, I don't want to hear about your problems. I can't take it. I have enough of my own problems. Please, I don't want to hear about it. That wasn't kind, was it? It was honest. It wasn't honest and kind, like Paul called my response to him, but it was honest without being kind. You see how easy it is to be honest or kind? But to be both, that's a rarity. Okay. At any rate, so no, I'm not a therapist. I'm not. Okay. So I hate when people know me only from my advice column and they think I'm a mental health professional, which I'm not. But when people say, oh, I know you from your videos, I love that. So someone's writing here, what age group were they, the gang? I would say they were probably in their 30s, bunch of men, white males, 30 years old, put an APB out for a group of white males in their 30s making their way northbound by foot on Kingston Avenue 3 months ago. I don't think you'll find them by now. They're probably left the city already. Anyways, they weren't from Brooklyn. They weren't from New York. They were from out of town. And as they began to explain to me, they were having a Shabbos in Crown Heights. They were experiencing Shabbos in Crown Heights. Some people do that. They come to Crown Heights to experience it's a really unique experience, Shabbos in the heart of Lubavitch. recommend it to everyone who hasn't had that experience. So anyways, but I'm getting at the reason why I'm telling this story. So this gang of guys, they're like, hey, we love your videos. We all watch your videos. And then one of them's like, you know why we like you? I'm like, why? Because you're a regular guy. Yeah, I like that. You're a regular guy. You know, you're just awkward. You're socially awkward. You know, your jokes bomb. You know, you're a regular guy. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like liking it. I'm liking it. But then as I'm liking it, my brain is telling me, hold on a second. They're kind of insulting you right now. Like, I'm liking it because I guess, you know, like kind of like with a dog, you can like, if you use like a friendly tone when you speak to a dog, you can say mean things like, you're a disgusting dog, aren't you? Right? The dog is still feeling good because the tone sounds nice, even though you're calling them disgusting. So they're like, yeah, we love your videos. Yeah, you're awkward. You're socially awkward. Yeah, you're a nerd. Yeah, your jokes bomb. But the words, as my brain is catching up, I'm like, these aren't compliments. Like, this is not something people strive to be identified with these qualities. And then I started thinking, and I started realizing, like, they have now like this carte blanche. Like, I realized they have this total license now to completely eviscerate me, like to make fun of me and put me down, like in the most vicious, like in like whatever a bunch of junior high kids would do on a playground, like trying to make each other cry. Like, they have the license to use that type of language as long as they continue to do it in a mode of smiling and ostensibly heaping praise upon me. And I realized, like, there's no end to this. I mean, they could just keep, look, you're a loser. Yeah, you're just a real awkward dork, a nerd, an absolute pathetic, slobbering, barely managing in adulthood. They like, we love you. Yeah, you get up there and you give these speeches and you're just totally fumbling through life, and you're confused and you're neurotic and your jokes aren't funny and you ramble. We love you. We just enjoy watching your absolute idiotic ranting, your lunacy, you're just putting it all out there. We love it. Yeah, we're your biggest fans. So they didn't actually go to that extent, but I realized that at that point they could have. They totally could have. So somebody writes here in the chat, I met you at the aisle and I thought you were mad cool. All right, that's great. I'm at the aisle all the time. I'm there several times a week. That's my place. That's where I go. Yeah. So regarding the niche, the viewership, I think that the viewership of this channel are people who are a little bit outcasts, but have enough self-awareness to know that they're the outcasts. I would assume that everybody who likes my videos had a really hard time between the ages of, I'd say, like 12 and 25, right? Because that's when all your peers are super cruel and insensitive, and it feels like the rest of your life is just going to be about being on the fringe of society. So, but probably most of my viewers are over 25 at this point, so you've kind of grown past the hellish adolescent years, and you're making your own life, and maybe you're already experiencing some success in life, and finding people who appreciate you, and your life is bigger than just some arbitrary group that they put you into, like a classroom. Now you're able to like make friends and associate with people by choice, and now you're finding people who are a little bit more like you and a little bit more sensitive to you, and kindred spirits. So I think that someone's writing here, you also have a big Baal Tshuva following. I don't think it's a big Baal Tshuva following. I think you're incorrect in saying that. I think that, like I'm saying, it's sensitive, self-aware, socially awkward, introspective weirdos, which happens to, that description happens to, the Venn diagram between that and like Baalei Tshuva is probably like very, almost like a circle. So there's a lot of that, but it's not because of Baalei Tshuva. It's more of a personality. So I think that there's a lot of sort of quirky intellectuals, thinkers, offbeat sense of humor, people who like random references, like the kind of people, who I think watch my videos, the kind of people who like go on Wikipedia to look something up, and like it's at 3 a.m, they look up and they're like, what happened? They fall down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, just clicking, and they realize that they went hundreds of clicks deep until finally they're looking up like the most totally obscure facts that they never, like a link within a link within a link. I think those kinds of people. Yeah. Abu says, I think you're spot on. I also love Rabbi Friedman, Rabbi Wawa, and Rabbi Singer, and more. Yeah, those are definitely different audiences, though. So, and it's great that today, in today's day and age, that we have so much Torah going on in the form of the internet that makes it available to everyone, everywhere at the same time. It's amazing. So there's somebody for everybody. There really is. And, it took me a while to just sort of lean into, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I didn't have to, but I chose to, I guess, study a little bit about, because my bread and butter is putting out content online. So obviously I don't want to just put it out and then nobody watches it. I want it to reach the people who will appreciate it. So I started to study, how do you actually get your content in front of the people who will appreciate it? And it's not like I'm doing this. I'm not like, my it's not my channel. I don't do ads. I'm sure you've noticed there's no ads before the videos. So it's not like I'm trying to get 1 million clicks, because it's not like I'm getting paid the more clicks I get. I'm not interested in getting 1 million views or 100,000 views. All I want is that the video should go to the people who would appreciate them. So I did some studying about how to do that, basically, how to get the algorithm to surface your content to the people who will actually appreciate it. And what I found, it was actually very helpful for me on a personal level, in my own personal growth and my personal journey, is what Dolly Parton said? She said, find out who you are and then be that on purpose. I just think that's so profound. Really, that is the whole gist of it. Figure out who you are. Like, don't figure out who you want to be. Don't look at somebody else and emulate their model and then try to have their audience. Look at who you are. And I view it in spiritual terms. Like, Hashem made you unique. Okay, so figure out what unique qualities Hashem gave you. And now just do that on purpose. Like, double down on that. And so I learned this, when I started looking into how do you actually get your content to be surfaced in front of the people who will appreciate it. So I had to learn things like value proposal and target audience. I mean, those are marketing terms. Value proposal. Why should you watch this video? Target audience. Who's likely to be looking for what it is that you're offering in this video, right? So I started to realize that really what you have to do is don't say this is for everybody. That's counterproductive. Don't say, oh, well, everyone would gain from this. You know what? If everyone will gain from it, nobody will gain from it. Narrow it down. The most successful stuff I had was stuff where I really just tried to narrow it down. Imagine one guy, imagine one dude. Who is this person, and why do you have something that's going to hit the spot for this person at this time? And that tends to also, for whatever reason, that just tends to also do better. The algorithm picks up on the fact that people are more deeply engaged. So as I studied this, I actually became much more comfortable with myself. And you could watch this. You could watch old YouTube videos of me. I mean, this channel, Soul Words, is I think only 3-4 years old. So I've been public speaking for 15 years, maybe longer. But there are videos of me on the internet that are for sure 15 years old. And my beard's not even white. I don't even have any white in my beard. You have videos of me with no white in my beard, and probably I wouldn't say I weighed half as much. I don't think that's, but definitely thinner, darker beard, and not that different. I mean, I was never like super different in my style, but I think what you would notice is an absence of certain, not a complete absence, but to some degree, you would see less of some of the things that if you're a regular viewer of mine, you would think of as sort of signature hallmark characteristics of mine. You would notice in my older videos, or even if you'd watch a video from 2 years ago, because really this has been a growth process until this day. Like even right now, what am I doing right now? This is unscripted. I'm just rambling here. I'm just totally being myself. Like the way I'm talking right now is 95% the way I talk in real life. And by the way, just so you know, I want to tell you something. Most people who talk in front of a camera, that's not how they talk in real life. It's not even, first of all, please just notice when you watch YouTube, when people are wildly gesticulating, like in a way that's totally like not commensurate to whatever they're talking about, right? Which is totally like, especially the rabbinic, and then like also like vocal tone. Like and the young man said to the rabbi, like, come on, who talks like that? No, it's called affectation. It's one of my other pet peeves, affectation. Oh, I hate affectation. I can tell you that for sure. I hate affectation. Anyways, the speaking styles and the gesticulation and the whatever, it's all the vocal tone and it's all affected, affected. It's all with affectation. That's not how people talk in real life. Those people online, most of them, they don't talk like that in real life. Okay, now some of them, it's interesting, they've gone so far, they stay in character all the time, like Tupac. You know that, by the way? Tupac was a theater nerd. Yeah, that's right. He was a theater nerd. He was an effeminate theater nerd, and he stumbled upon the thug persona, and he stayed in character, and that's what killed him. That's how he got killed, because he was playing thug with the real gangsters. Yeah, but that was a character he played. He just stayed in character. Why? I mean, he made a ton of money out of it. People loved it. People gave him adulation for it. But that was the end of him. That's what killed him. That was an affectation. There you go. Hold on a second. Affectation is crime. Adolf Loos should have said. What? I don't know who Adolf Loos is, or is that Loos? Is that like a Dutch name? And he should have said it. You want to let him know now? Is he still living? Could you let him know that he should say it? I don't know. Could you rewrite that? Affectation is crime, Adolf Loos. Because I could Google it, but maybe you could just explain it right now. I'm closing in on 50. I do have a dry sense of humor, and I am a little odd. You were spot on. Of course I was, Paul. I know my customers over here. I know my customers. Okay, so what am I talking about? Affectation, yeah, and then before that. Oh, so like right now, the way I'm talking is 95% the way that I talk in real life. Like if you were to come into my house right now, well, you're a stranger, I don't think I'd be relaxed if a stranger came to my house at 12:27 a.m. The night before Pesach. So I think I would be inhibited. But if you were a friend of mine and we were just hanging out and talking in real life, if I felt totally safe with you and I didn't feel the cameras are on and I didn't have to like be filtered, the way I'm acting right now is 95% the way that I act in real life. And why is that? Because I learned this. I told you I learned about value proposal and target audience, and just figure out your niche. You can't be all things to all people. So forget about mass appeal. Just figure out who are you. Be that. Totally be it. Be the most pure version of who you already are. And then you're going to attract the people that speaks to. I don't need the people that it doesn't speak to, because thank God there's so many people online who are teaching Torah. So if their persona attracts a certain demographic and that way those people are learning Torah, great, then they got it covered. Then it's covered. But I definitely think there is a certain audience out there who, I don't think they wouldn't be learning Torah at all if I weren't teaching. I think they'd still be learning, but I think I add something. You know, I'm not saying it's the end all and be all. I don't think it is at all, but it's definitely a certain style that has a certain value, and for some people it adds a certain level of enjoyment. I also think that I do go deeper than most people do online. I don't think I'm smarter than them. I don't think I'm more capable of depth. I just think I'm more willing to do it. I think that online, sometimes you're going to even unintentionally or subconsciously pander to the lowest common denominator. Maybe not the lowest rock bottom common denominator, but, you know, everything's relative. You know, within the world of rabbis, lowest common denominator is, you know, not the same lowest common denominator as, let's say, a YouTube channel of prank videos. Just a prank, bro. You know that. So the lowest, the bottom of the barrel of YouTube prank videos, that would be like real low brow, right? But within the realm of rabbis teaching classes, what's lowest common denominator, relatively speaking? It's, trying to keep things light and entertaining and sort of avoiding depth. Although you want your audience to feel smart, because people like to feel smart. So you give them the experience of depth. You give them a hint of depth without actually bringing them into the depth, because you'll see if you actually watch analytics, any part where you go into deep exposition, you're going to see a drop off in engagement, okay? Because most people are not interested in that. And even people who are capable of it, it's not like they're in the mood for it all the time. People are on their phones. Most people watch videos on their phones. They're on their phone. Maybe they're in the middle of 3 other things when they're watching your video. It's not like they're in the mood for getting really, really deep. So getting deep can often scare people away. I don't mind. I don't mind losing people. So I enjoy it, obviously. I enjoy depth. I enjoy nuance, especially like paradox. That's what I really like. I like when you get to a point where the idea becomes so lofty that it can no longer be contained. And then you're forced to embrace opposites and to find harmony between them. That's what I love. Well, that's not going to be Baby Shark levels of popularity. You know, that's not Kinder Egg unboxing levels of popularity. I know you guys probably are not such YouTube aficionados to realize that Kinder Egg unboxing, no, you wouldn't know this. Well, sometime when you're in the mood of blowing your mind over something insipid, go search YouTube for Kinder Egg unboxings and just be enthralled by the sheer number of them that exist and how there's a limitless number of them which will have 10 million, 50 million, 100 million views. Yeah. So that's called mass appeal, right? Okay. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 message retracted by Noah. So were you swearing and you felt bad and you deleted it because you didn't want me to accidentally read your swears online, and then someone would take a clip of it and put it on WhatsApp, and then my Pesach would be ruined? Is that what happened? Okay. Lose. Is it lose or lows? Is it like the way the Dutch do a double vowel to be a long vowel? How do you pronounce it? It sounds like a Dutch name. Only the Dutch. The Dutch like those double vowels. And they use them usually to make a, right? Isn't that what they do in Dutch? They use a double vowel to be a long vowel. What? It's pronounced Lowe's. Yeah, that's like Lowe's, like Home Depot, Lowe's. Okay, so I was right. All right. Lowe's was a guy in Vienna, but he wasn't Austrian. He was Dutch, right? He was Dutch. Go confirm it for me. Lowe's was a guy in Vienna who said ornament is crime as a manifesto of architecture and design, but had moral overtone. Your manifesto is affectation is crime, I guess. Clumsy Thumb wanted to clarify, not muddle. Frank Lloyd Wright said that if something is structurally necessary, Frank Lloyd Wright was a scumbag, by the way. He was like a lowlife. In his actual personal life, he was disgusting. But you can go Google that and see if I'm overreacting. But Frank Lloyd Wright said that if something is structurally necessary in a building, then it'll be aesthetic by definition. And if it's not necessary, like you put columns, but the columns don't hold anything up, so then it will be unattractive. He held that the form and the function are intertwined, or even are one thing. So this sounds similar to that idea. I like this idea. So, yeah. Ornament is a crime. Yeah, Lowe's said ornament is a crime. Ornament is a crime. And by the way, Noah, that is why in a Lubavitcher Sukkah, what am I about to say? What am I about to tell you? In a Lubavitcher Sukkah, Noah, finish it for me. Write it in the chat. What am I going to tell you about a Lubavitcher Sukkah? Those who follow Chabad Minhagim, people who are Lubavitcher Chassidim, if you ever visited their Sukkah on the holiday of Sukkot, what did you notice or not notice, as it were, about their Sukkah? You know what I'm saying? You with me? No, you with me? There's something called no idea. Okay, fine. So Raphael writes, no decorations. That is right. There's something called Noi Sukkah. Noi Sukkah literally means sukkah decorations. And it's a real thing. Decorating your sukkah isn't just an arts and crafts project for a bunch of Hebrew school kids. Noi Sukkah is a real concept. It speaks about it in the Gemara. And in a Lubavitcher Sukkah, there's no Noi Sukkah, no decorations. And the rationale is that the sukkah itself is already beautiful. And it doesn't need to, forgive the cliche, we don't need to gild the lily. You know what gilding the lily is? Someone takes a lily, beautiful flower that God made, and he says, you know what would really make this pop? I'm going to spray gold on it. I'm going to dip it in gold, and then it'll be gorgeous. Like, no, leave it alone. The lily is already gorgeous. It's called gilding the lily. Yeah, so Noi Sukkah would be gilding the lily, and for that reason, we don't do it. There's a lot of things like that, by the way. You ever notice the Chabad Talesim, the talis? There's no atara. There's not that. Sometimes you'll see people with the very ornate crown on the headpiece on the talus that's made of jewels and precious metals, and we don't have that. And it's quite on purpose that we don't have that. The Rebbe was the epitome of that. No ornamentation. Man, the Rebbe was zero ornamentation, no affectation. That's... The Rebbe was zero affectation. The way the Rebbe davened, the way the Rebbe interacted with people in conversation, zero affectation. Nothing done for the sake of reaction. Nothing superfluous. That's really what we have to endeavor to be. But I think what that means is each of us has to endeavor to be that in our own way. You are unique. You are unique. So there's a pure version of you and there's an affected version of you. When you gild the lily by playing up certain traits that get a reaction, you're presenting a modified version of yourself, which may, in the short run, gain you reactions that you are happy about. But I don't think that's why God made you you. I think really, especially in today's day and age, like we're in the time like Mashiach is coming. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be no affectation because the world itself will be perfect, and we're not going to need to put dressing on anything. It's interesting. Oratory, for instance. If you listen to speeches from, the earliest recorded speeches they have, I don't know, maybe some phonograph, some whatever from 150 years ago or something. But you listen to old speeches, or the accents. First of all, people put on these accents like this oratory. I guess it's like a thespian accent, and the trill, the way they like overemphasize certain consonants, and like there's a certain theatric, and a lot of it I understand has to do with the lack of electronics. Like I have this awesome mic, this Shure mic. It's made in Australia. This thing costs, I don't know, $400 or $500, and it's gorgeous because this mic is so good. I can whisper. I can literally whisper right now, and you hear it just fine. But think about oratory in the ancient world, or even just 150 years ago or 100 years ago. You had to project, so it created this very bombastic sort of stage persona, very operatic. Literally, I'm not even using operatic in a metaphorical sense. I'm using like literally opera and the like. This very booming sort of presence, and you have to exaggerate because people are sitting very far away. You want the people in the cheap seats to be able to see, and so you're moving and you're projecting, but it's affectation. And today, I don't think it's required. I don't think we need to do that. I think we can just be ourselves. So, Abu says in Rabbi Friedman's VIP class, that's a paid group. It's paid so that they can keep it small. I don't remember how small the groups are, but it's small to the point where everyone who wants to interact with him is able to interact with him. So he writes in Rabbi Friedman's VIP class, he's very chill and genuine. Yeah. I've actually been on his VIP classes a couple of times. It's like, it is very similar to just sitting and talking and having a tea with him in real life. Yeah. And I do really absorb and connect. I'm so glad to have found you as well. I'm just a simple, dedicated, full-on monotheist, 38 years old with 5 kids. All right. Full-on monotheist is a good thing to be in life. That's very nice. So Raphael says, wasn't the Beis Hamikdash ornamented with gold, etc.? Yeah. So you're asking, I'm saying that everything should just be Spartan and stark. But the Beis Hamikdash had gold. It's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know. What do you think about that? I'm thinking that my heart tells me that for the Beis Hamikdash to be covered in gold is to be itself. Our sages tell us that gold was only created for the temple. In fact, I think the wording of the Medrash is that the world was not worthy for gold, worthy of gold, for any other purpose than for the temple. So if it weren't for the fact that God wanted there to be a temple, he would not have even made gold because there'd be no proper use for it. In other words, when the temple has gold, it's not affectation. Hear what I'm saying? When you put gold on something, you know, like these rich people, and they go to Dubai and they have $50,000 meals, and they'll have like a cocktail that costs $10,000, like literally like a martini that costs $10,000. And how do they make it cost $10,000? So they'll put gold in it. Put gold, like that's like, by the way, if you ever have like a restaurant where rich people start coming to it and you just need to randomly charge 5 figures for a menu item, you just take anything you already make. It could be like grilled cheese sandwich, and you just put gold on it, gold shavings. It's harmless. You can eat gold. You just pass it through. So you could just put gold shavings on you could take like white bread and American cheese in a toaster oven, served with a bowl of tomato soup, and just put gold shavings on it. $12,000. No problem. So then that's a misappropriation of gold. The grilled cheese sandwich doesn't need it, and therefore to put it on it is a betrayal of what a grilled cheese sandwich is. A grilled cheese sandwich has an identity, and you subverted the identity by putting the stupid gold on it. But when you put gold on the Beis Hamikdash, on the temple, you're not subverting the identity of the Beis Hamikdash, because to the contrary, the gold only exists for the Beis Hamikdash. It's the most natural thing. See, I guess that's the idea. It's not that there's a problem with being, what's the word? Ornamental inherently implies some degree of superfluousness. But let's call it being elegant or regal. There's nothing inherently wrong with being elegant or regal if that is true to whatever the thing is. Then it's appropriate. So, in other words, a king wears a crown. He doesn't wear a paper crown. He wears a golden crown. That's not an affectation. That's not unnecessary hype. That's what a crown is. But if you put gold on the golden hubcaps on your car, well, that's totally unnecessary, and yeah, that's obnoxious, and to anybody with any decent taste, it's garish and off-putting. Okay, yeah. Abu says that's an awesome answer. Thank you. Eliza says Hashem said that gold was good. Gordon Gecko said that greed is good. So how you like that? What do you think about that? Okay. What else do we want to talk about over here? 26 watching. Shame Avaya. Am I really doing all of this for 26 people? Every person is a world. Every person is a world. But I got to go to bed soon. I got to get up earlier than I normally do. because I'm a firstborn, and I have to attend a siyum so that I don't have to fast tomorrow. I normally get up late. Not late, but later than what normal people get up at. There's a time when you have to say the Shema by that time. I make sure to get up by that time. And then, I may daven 10, 11. I'm just being honest. That's what I do. My work day sometimes ends at 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I'll get up later, and then I'll daven, pray the morning prayers around 10 or 11. It's quite often what I do. But tomorrow I got to get up at dawn. You know what dawn is? 7:30. For me, that's dawn. 7:30 is dawn. 7:30 is, yeah. So, Avi writes, is a Christian Seder cultural appropriation? You're darn right it is. Yeah, I like that. I love that. I think, but here's why that's not going to help us. It's true, but it's not going to help us because okay, I'm going to say it in yeshivish. The whole etzem inyan of cultural appropriation is only chashuv by a certain segment that those who do Christian seders don't respect to begin with. Let me spell it out. Person who's doing Christian Seder, if you would tell them that's cultural appropriation, forget about telling them that that's cultural appropriation. Let's remove it from the immediate context, because then they're going to be defensive. Anytime you tell somebody what they're doing, anytime you scrutinize what the person himself is doing, they're going to be defensive. Let's say you find a guy who does a Christian Seder, and then you talk to him a week later in a totally different context, and you mention to him, so-and-so did such and such, and it was cultural appropriation. I would bet you dollars to donuts that guy who did the Christian Seder, evangelical guy, he would tell you, well, I don't care about cultural appropriation. That's for the woke. The woke people care about cultural appropriation. I don't care about cultural appropriation. So that's how he would say, that's how he would respond, even if he heard cultural appropriation used in a context completely apart from any type of scrutiny of his own behaviors. How much more so if you would go to him and directly label something he's doing as cultural appropriation. He'll tell you, I don't care. What are you, woke? I don't care about cultural appropriation. So it's not going to work. It's a wonderful insight. But that argument will not work. By the way, you know what you're making me think of? Oh my gosh. My favorite book is Tanya. In the second volume of Tanya, Shar Yichud V'Amuna, it's about the oneness of God. So in chapter 2 of Shar Yichud V'Amuna, he says, Mikan Shuvas Haminim. Here we have an answer to the heretics who deny divine providence and the miracles that are recorded in the Torah. And then he proceeds to give a logical argument for why the ongoing existence of the universe is a greater miracle than the splitting of the sea. And without getting into it right now, it's a wonderful logical argument. But he says that's the answer to the heretics, but the heretics don't believe in the splitting of the sea. So if the whole argument is based on a premise which the heretic won't even agree to begin with, how is it an answer? How is it mikan tshuvas haminim? How is this an answer to the heretics? Hear what I'm saying? Anyone out there familiar with chapter 2 of volume 2 of Tanya? So, anyways, what the commentaries explain, and it made a lot of sense to me, was the Alter Rebbe is not telling you, here's how you should answer the heretic. The Alter Rebbe is telling you for yourself, for your own satisfaction, how can you answer the questions that the heretics ask? Not what you tell them. What do you tell them? You tell them, you know what? I'm not going to dignify I'm not going to dignify your charges with a response because you're just here to make trouble. But for yourself, after you walk away from the heretic and you think to yourself, but yeah, how would I respond to myself? Anyways, so yeah, that's that. Someone's saying it's not so far off in Chitas, meaning daily Tanya study, Chumash Till and Tanya study. It's around Shavuos time. Chapter 2 of Shari Yichud V'Emunah is usually around Shavuos time, so it's at least in 7 weeks. Yeah. So yeah. Beautiful, you can resign from the debating society then. Yes, you can resign from the debating society. Yeah, it's not meant to be an actual polemic. It's meant for sorting out these ideas internally. Exactly. That is exactly correct. So, yeah. You know, it's interesting. You're talking about is a Christian Seder cultural appropriation. Yeah. I remember one time I was talking to a Christian guy, and he was trying to explain to me when Easter was. And I wasn't even that interested, but he was like, he was very like adamant about helping me to understand how it was formulated, like how they decided when Easter was. And he was telling me all this stuff. It's like, it has to be, so it's Sunday, but but it's got to be after the vernal equinox, but it has to be, like, he's giving me all this like formulae. I don't even remember. It was rather complex. Somebody could probably Google it right now. But after the whole thing was said and done, I realized, oh, they're just trying to make it coincide with Pesach. Like, he could have just told me that. He could have just said it like that. Because it's interesting. Pesach, in the Jewish calendar, like all holidays in the Jewish calendar, but Pesach is the primary example of it because it's the one that this whole system is based upon, can fall out different times of the year. It fluctuates by a good month where it can fall because the Jewish calendar is not completely solar or lunar. You know, like is it Ramadan right now? I'm vaguely aware that it may be Ramadan now. Could somebody tell me if it is? But, like the Muslim calendar is purely lunar. And therefore the discrepancy between the 12 lunar months and the solar cycle, 365 days, causes that, yes, it is Ramadan right now. So what are you supposed to say to the Muslims on Ramadan? Like Eid Mubarak? Is that what you're supposed to say? Is that the polite thing? Whatever is the respectful, polite thing to be said to a Muslim on Ramadan, that's what I'm saying. Someone could let me know if that's the proper thing to say. Yeah, sure. You're saying sure, like that is the correct thing to say? Okay. So the Muslim calendar is purely lunar, and that's why Ramadan can come out all around the year. It'll just keep on moving and moving and moving. By the way, I have some advice for my Muslim friends. And I've said this before publicly, and I'm going to say it again, which is a Muslim life hack. And I would love to hear from a real Muslim whether or not this would actually work. But here's what I would recommend to you. That when Ramadan is in the winter, you should go to like Manchester. And when Ramadan is in the summer, you should go to Melbourne. Or like, yeah, or Johannesburg. Did anyone ever think of that? Because if you're in the winter, in the northern hemisphere, especially in the extreme north, the days are really short. And then you only have to fast till like 3 p.m. And in the summer, the days are really long in the northern hemisphere. So you go to the southern hemisphere where they're short. Did anyone ever think about that? Abu is laughing. I love the fact that a guy named Abu is LOLing at my Muslim life hack, which leads me to believe that it would work. Abu, tell me it would work, right? Would it work? Would my Muslim life hack work? Or is it haram, what I just said? I think it would work, and I think it would be completely within... Nobody, you tell me that it's not acceptable. I want to hear that there's anything wrong with what I just said. It would work. He said, yes, exclamation point. Yes, it would work. Okay. I feel so proud of that. Now, also tell me, am I the first guy who ever thought of it? Or is this something like Muslim teenagers all joke about and say, well, when I'm going to be older, I'm going to own a private jet and I'm going to go to the... Oh, it misses the point, though. Yeah, I mean, I didn't say it's the spirit of the law. I mean, it's, but within the letter of the law, it's 100% technically acceptable. But yes, you're right. It misses the spirit of the law. You're correct. Yes, yes. Okay. But why am I telling you this? So Pesach has to fall at a certain time in the year. It has to be in the springtime. Why? Because the Torah tells us to guard the springtime. That's what it says. Guard the springtime and keep the Passover, which means Pesach has to always be in the springtime. What is the springtime? There are astronomical ways of describing it, such as the vernal equinox. There are also maybe would say biological ways, or give me the proper word for this, but the blossoming of the trees. So if you see that Passover is going to come too early, it's going to be in the winter instead of the spring, so you create a leap year. And every so often, the Jewish year will have an extra month of Adar, which is the month that precedes Passover, in order to push it off so that Passover, the date of Passover, will be late enough that it will fall within the spring. Okay. Maybe I'll just leave you with this thought. Why is Passover called the Festival of Spring? Why is it called the Festival of Spring? Good question, right? Like, I understand why Passover is called the Festival of Passover, because God passed over the Jewish homes in Egypt. I know why it's called the Festival of Matzahs, because you eat the matzahs. I know why it's called the season of our liberation, because that's when we were liberated. But why is Passover called Chag HaAviv, the celebration of spring, which is different than the rite of spring? Do you know there were riots when Stravinsky's Rite of Spring debuted? I think was it in Paris? Is that where it happened? Where were there riots? Can you believe that? Stravinsky's Rite of Spring caused riots. I only know it because of Fantasia. You know, Fantasia stole that Mickey Mouse Sorcerer's Apprentice story from the Maharal. That's right, the Maharal Miprog. Story of Yossel Galem. That's the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Why is Pesach called the Festival of Spring? So I'll tell you something. Spring is an inevitability. Spring eventually comes no matter what. After the winter, there is spring. And what happens in the spring is things come back to life. Things start to grow. Things thaw out. And the rhythm of nature begins to pulse. And it becomes clear that things are alive, whereas in the winter things seem sort of still. the life force of the world becomes more apparent. And it's inevitable. Spring will always come. So really, what does spring represent? Spring represents the inevitability of the life force rearing its head. Now, on a personal level, what does that mean? That means you can go and try to be as spiritual as you want, but at some point you got to eat. At some point you got to go to the bathroom. At some point you got to sleep. You can go and try to be transcendent and holy, like a soul without a body, but you're not. You're a soul in a body. An inevitable, unavoidable part of life is you're going to have to reckon with the force of life, of biological life and its needs. Just like the world will always come to a season of spring, okay? Your body is always going to inevitably reawaken as much as you try to go and be transcendent, and it's going to call to you and summon to you. But we got to do what we got to do. Nature calls. Nature calls. All right, so then what are you supposed to do about that? Well, I'll tell you, the pagans, the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians were pagans. The whole ancient world really were pagans. The pagans say if you can't beat them, join them. Because it's inevitable that the power of nature is going to call. So just lean into it. In fact, worship it. And that's what they did. The pagans worshiped the power of nature. And they surrendered themselves to the power of nature. And that's why from the pagan worldview, might makes right. Because if naturally speaking, I can exhibit force, then I should and I must. The Jewish point of view says, no, you don't have to. You can withhold. You can respect yourself enough to exercise self-discipline. Yes, it's inevitable that you have to tend to your body, but you're going to do it on your terms, not on the body's terms. So, yes, ultimately you're going to have to eat. You can't go the rest of your life without eating. But when you do have to stop and eat, do it like a mensch. Do it like a person with dignity. You're going to have to deal with the fact that God made us beings who are supposed to get married and procreate and have children and seek intimacy, even in a physical context. Yes, but don't turn that into a God which forces and demands service, where you have to actually make sacrifices for those needs. No, channel those needs on your terms. Use those parts of your human nature as a way of glorifying God. So that is the message of the holiday of the spring. Yes, the power of nature is an inevitability that we must reckon with. But we don't serve it. We make sure that we use it to serve God. That is the lesson. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's late. I got to get up early like I told you. Please enjoy your Passover, and maybe we'll do this again sometime soon. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to end the live stream over here. I got to go to the control room. I want to say, I'm just going to read, Abu says, I want to say that Chabad Hasidus is probably the most cerebral and beautiful, truly human and godly pursuits. Hearing ideas like a constant state of being mind blown, and of course, simultaneously. Yeah, and obviously Chabad Hasidus is, that's what I know. I don't claim to be well-versed in any other school. But yes, I also find Chabad Hasidus to be exquisitely beautiful in the depth and the realness. Yeah, that's what I like. And then so it keeps me going. Okay. Thank you. Oh, and you're really valuable, warm, and funny. I'm just reading the comments. I'm glad that you appreciate the humor. I know not everyone gets all the jokes. Okay. Yeah, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to shut this down. Okay. Chag kosher v'sameach. True freedom, 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 freedom.